Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of For the Love of Music right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is David Wiebe. He is a musician, but however, he knows that other musicians have a hard time promoting themselves. The business side of things is not always easy to do. How do you make money out of it? How do you draw attention? There is all that business hat that a lot of musicians don't want to do, but in order to get their music out there, they need to learn it. And he's learned that the hard way. He spent a better part of 10 years building a career in music. He did all the things you were supposed to do as a musician: playing live, writing songs, recording, distributing, promoting, setting up websites, blogging, starting a podcast, growing his social media following, and even doing early most platforms. Sorry, got tongue-tied there for a moment. Yet his success was modest. That is until he discovered network marketing. Within the training, organization, and resources, he found the missing pieces to his career, as well as the missing piece to most artists' career. An entrepreneurial mindset. What he wants to do is to help other artists able to stand on his shoulders and go further and faster in their careers. He was born in Camrose, Alberta, Canada. He's in Penticton right now, a beautiful place here in BC. He was raised in Japan, so I wonder what influence he has there on his music, where he was exposed to manga, anime, as well as J-pop and J-rock, and he spent his days in school drawing mazes and graphic novels, devising video games, marketing, making satiric newsletters and more. His family returned to Canada when he was 13 and he became fascinated with hip hop. And for the same pattern played out in school, instead of focusing on his studies, he filled his binders with lyrical ideas. Bad ones. At a summer camp one year, a friend saw him playing the top 40 songs on his guitar and couldn't believe his eyes. So at 17, he jumped right into learning the guitar and leaned on the roller coaster journey of twists and turns and ups and downs and headache and heartache and so much more. Welcome to the show, David. Quite a resume there. I love where the influences come in life, and I imagine Japan most certainly. The way they look at music, the way they look at art, in a very, very different way than what we look at art altogether in North America. So, quite a profound upbringing there that really could broaden your whole mindset. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Sarah.
So, Japan influence. How old were you when you went over there?
Would have been 5, turning 6 years old.
Right. So kind of you're at that beginning of awareness and absorbing like a sponge everything around you. Was music important to you then at that time?
I wouldn't say that it was. And early life would see me banging on pianos or detuning guitars, but beyond that, that was my interest. I had no idea
Hmm.
that I had some talent in me that I would later take to playing musical instruments or singing.
Hmm. What came first, the kind of the lyrics or the music? Because you're always writing in your book and drawing things, etc. Was that the kind of the storytelling format that led you eventually into music?
When I was first getting started, it was absolutely lyrics first.
Hmm.
And I was obsessed at an early age, at least when after returning to Canada, I should say, with vocabulary. So anything that I could get my hands on. At the time, we didn't have Google like we have today. Internet was still in its inception and beginning days. So it was like Reader's Digest and the dictionary and maybe some online sources. Uh, so I just wanted to broaden my vocabulary because I could see how smart certain people sounded when they used certain words. And that was pretty fascinating to me early on.
How did that influence kind of the writing of lyrics, though? Was it a particular word that would have a profound effect on you and from there became the story?
How did the vocabulary have an impact on the lyrics? That's such a great question. At first, it probably didn't steer me too much because it was more about thinking about what would rhyme
Mm.
more than anything else was,
Yeah.
especially with hip hop. But I mean, let's face it, pop music and R&B and blues, and there's lots of rhyming schemes in
Yes.
many songs. So it that turned out to be, it was intuitive, but it was turned out to be a great place to start because now all of a sudden I have a broader base of words to pull from,
Mhm.
not limited to school, cool, fool, you know.
Maybe even introducing some vocabulary that some people haven't heard before,
I
which is,
did.
yeah.
I did that in school, and people would say, "I don't think that's the word, the way you use that word." And I said, "I know it is because I've looked it up."
Don't argue with the perpetual student there.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about blues and blues. I mean,
Mm,
I call it the elongation music, the music that just makes you want to stretch out. The elongation of the notes, the subtlety. It's music that you have to move to. It moves your heart, it moves your soul, it moves your body. How much of the blues had an effect? And I know kind of rock was your thing, but you mentioned blues, so how much did it have an impact on your writing or music in all?
huge.
Mm,
Especially given that there would be no Chuck Berry, there would be
yes,
no Jimi Hendrix,
yes.
there would be no Elvis really
Mm,
without rhythm and blues. And those were the artists that made a huge impact on me. I first listened to the Beastie Boys, but they were referring to Jimi Hendrix.
yeah,
And I thought to myself, okay, I got to check out this Hendrix guy, which I took a lot more interested in when I started learning the guitar. But, and some people don't see it, I guess. But Jimmy was such an incredible rock and roll and
mm,
R&B and psychedelic rock and even blues player.
yeah.
And I actually studied blues under Brian Griffiths, who has supposedly played with Eric Clapton and the Beatles and such. So I learned under him for about a year, and I
Mm,
think all we worked on was the blues at that point.
yeah. Yeah, it is kind of the heart and soul, isn't it?
Yeah,
And which to spring from. Have you seen the new Elvis movie?
I have not. I need to
Oh,
check it out.
oh, I think it did it justice. It really did. But there is a scene in there where Elvis um, is listening to some music. There's some church music going on for African American people, and you see a scene of a couple dancing, very sultry to
Mm,
the music, and then you see him being completely transformed by the church music and how it became such an enormous influence in everything that he did. And it's always loved those kind of origin stories of what was the switch, what was the
mm.
hook, that brings people in because it becomes the thread that goes through everything that they do.
Absolutely. And my parents were actually a huge influence on that.
Hmm.
My mom loved the Carpenters and
Hmm.
Chicago.
Oh,
And my
Chicago,
dad
yes.
my dad loved Weird Al and
Yeah.
a lot of hard rock stuff, Striper and lots of Christian bands too. So I was exposed to a lot of this stuff, and I still love most of it. I learned a lot from my parents' musical tastes.
And the broader it is, the more it opens up to the diversity. I'm a 70s chick, so that was my youth.
Yeah.
And of course, we had some fantastic bands like Chicago,
Yeah.
but, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I just love them. God Bless the Child. And what was the other one that they had here? Yeah, God Bless the Child, When I Die. There was a group called Bread that was really, really
Oh
good.
yeah.
And of course, Earth, Wind and Fire, all of that type of music. And because it became the disco era, it was music that you really could get up and dance to, a music that really, you didn't just listen still, you had to move along to it. And um, I lived in South Africa at that time, and my brother and his friends started the first mobile discotheque, but then my boyfriend and I did the second one and would play at parties everywhere, carting crates of records around, the speakers that were like coffins, great during the party. Then you had to load everything up at the end of the night. But just introducing people that kind of the 60s still dancing together, a little bit of individual, but, really kind of getting into the music, which was absolutely fabulous. So it opened up music for me considerably at that time. Is there a
Mm,
particular moment in time or place that, is like, I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to be a part of this.
the moment that I decided I had to do music, and actually you touched on it, which was when I was at summer camp and my friend was playing guitar
Mm,
and all these top 40 hits at the time, which Sum 41, Blink 182, Matchbox 20.
yeah.
You can do that. Like, I didn't know. I had no awareness that you could play pop music on your guitar or in your instrument. And as soon as I learned that, I mean, I'd already kind of had the lyric side of it, things covered.
Mm,
Now it was, well, if we're going to take this a step further, do I just want to be a vocalist, or would I like to take this a step further into playing an instrument or recording myself, which is pretty much exactly where it went.
Do you feel there's a difference? Because, we have the singers that are just the singers, and then you have the instrumentalists behind them. But I watch the shows like The Voice, etc., and the person who plays the instrument with the band. There is a connection with the band that is kind of deeper than just the person who's just singing in the front. Like you can just feel the synergy that is there. Do you find it does change the way you perform, the way you sing, when it's with the instrument and with a group?
Yeah, 100% it does. Every band is different,
Hmm.
and it's a rare band that sticks together too.
Yeah.
And that's a really tough part of finding any kind of success in music, is sticking it out and being willing to keep going. You'll find that some artists always have hired hands around them,
Mm,
and they can play their instruments very well. So they can count on them to be able to show up and bring the groove and the vibe that they need that night to sing.
hmm.
But you'll also find bands like U2 that pretty much had no member changes for their professional career. And that's a
Yeah.
rarity. That's a rarity. But yeah, it changes everything. Like, you can't substitute the Edge out with Van Halen and expect to be the same
Yes.
band at all.
Right. And then some people, they're just born to be at the mic. Forget about the instrument. They are
Yes,
the music. That is their instrument. But, I say you have singers and you have singers. And
that's
that
true.
sanger that is the instrument and the voice is, part of the everything, as opposed to people who are just singers and they almost feel it's background music to their song rather than the song and the music being at one.
Mm. So true. And, all approaches are totally valid.
Hmm.
People who want to emphasize the vocals in their bands, and we saw that through the 90s as well. Bands like DC Talk and Boys to Men, and in any genre or any creative belief, you could find bands that very, very, very vocal heavy over anything else.
Well,
But even
mm,
even in the 90s, you could still find bands that weren't about the singing,
yes.
right? Pearl Jam and Nirvana.
Yeah.
It was more so like it was about the aesthetic of, like, we're kind of tired of 80s hair metal,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
let's make more abstract now. That's what
Yeah.
that music was all about.
I was at my daughter's this last weekend visiting my grandchildren, and my other daughter came to visit. And, it's Hey Google and put on some 80s music. And it was just one thing after the other. And it was kind of so bubblegummy and tinny, a lot of it. And it felt like it was just, I don't know, much to do with the look of the 80s. It kind of felt that kind of became the music as well, where it didn't felt a little disconnected on some of the music, not all of it, obviously, but where I felt, of course, and we always love the era that we grow up in. So the 70s
Yes,
for me and the 60s really felt like those were the true artists. Um, but then you've got groups like the Pentatonics, a cappella group where they are the instrument and they really are incredible. So I think if the musician can be discovered within you, but I think if it's always born within you, it's just waiting to be revealed.
absolutely. And I think, to your point too, like with YouTube and everything else, technology has come to such a point where almost anyone can sound pretty amazing
Hmm.
with layering and chorus and auto
Yes.
tune, and all the all the goods are there for people to be able to do it. And yet, if it's not a passion of yours, it's not
Yeah.
something. even worth getting into because there's much more lucrative things you could be doing with your life.
It's a tough life. It is. Talking about that, like, Simon Cowell on America's Got Talent, he will have somebody sing and then he'll stop them and go, okay, I want you to do that a cappella because
Mm,
the background music they chose is just overriding them. And then suddenly this person on the spot, and I've seen children do this, which is just, like compose and on the spot. And out comes this beautiful voice. He does have an ear for that. That is something that Simon's really good at. And sometimes I think it can be disappointing to go and watch someone live sing after hearing
mm,
their record, because when you strip away all the additives, is their voice really transcending? And it can be disappointing at times. Whereas I think back in the day, they had to rely on the voice. They didn't have all the
yes.
synthesizers and everything else. So I think that, I did a show last week on AI. It's a wonderful tool, but anything can take over if you give it the power. It's a question of
Yeah.
how we use the tools. And I think the same with music. Some of it became too much of adjusting that we actually lose the voice. And it can be disappointing when you see them live.
Absolutely. And in the 60s and 70s, like people nowadays, musicians will go up on stage and go, yeah, I can't really hear myself through the monitors.
Mm,
I mean, imagine we didn't have that kind of
yeah,
monitoring system in the 60s or 70s.
no,
So I'm just sitting there going, what are you talking about? I can hear you clearly through the adjust the direction or,
yeah.
turn it up a bit if you need to. But yeah, compared to what used to be, absolutely. Like we have much better monitoring and much better technology to be able to do what you need to do.
But don't
It's
overpower, right? Don't replace.
yeah.
All of these tools, all of these wonderful instruments, the keyboards and everything else that they're doing, it's wonderful to enhance and to introduce and to turn this bit up, that bit down. But the moment it replaces, the voice, then I think it's doing a disservice to the artist. And I think that, an artist maybe is so hungry to go in and cut a record, or, sign somewhere to kind of get the music out, but very often could be very disappointed because they seem to be taken over and kind of lose their voice.
It's become somewhat of a cliche now, but the
Mm.
question has really become like, is there a song?
Mm,
Like you said, when you strip away the elements, and I think Lady Gaga recently said it too, that I could take any of these songs and play them on the piano and sing them to you, and they're real songs. And
yes.
I really get what she's saying because I,
Hmm.
I approach it the same way. It it might transform into something else while I'm recording
Hmm.
and producing the track, but when it was first written, it was probably me and a guitar in a quiet room. So
Exactly. Exactly. And, that again is the root of it. And
yes,
so we don't want to lose the core root of
no,
it because you were in it, I think very often with artists, it's what comes through you, your channelers. And what comes through you, and you can see when an artist is at one with the instrument, or they are the instrument with their voice, is because they've allowed it to come through them, whether
yeah.
it's an author or whether it's a singer, a musician, and you never want to lose that separation. That you don't want to separate the artist from that. So you want that that core rarity of what
Hmm.
that song is, and it's amplify it, yes, but don't drown it out.
Yeah. A big thing that I learned with my friend Patrick Zielinski, who's a producer and someone that I've collaborated with pretty extensively and still very much appreciate everything he does to this day, is does it add? This
Mm,
was the big question
yes.
in the studio. Like,
Yeah.
does it add when we add in a piano or when we add in bells
Uh-huh.
or an organ track or a mellotron? Does it do anything for the track or does it just take away from the
Yes.
essence that needs to be heard? Yeah.
And this is why you have certain music producers that, they have an ability to separate and know what needs to come together and what is not needed. There's just an ear in them, isn't there? Where
Yeah.
when you have the good producers, nope, no, that's too much. Take that up. Bring this up a little bit. Bring that down a little bit. And it's that actually is their gift. They're the musician in the way that they can, compensate everything in there. But it's it's a very special technique, isn't it?
It is. In my early days, because I was still very much naive and learning, I would have just gone, let's throw on another guitar and let's throw
Yeah.
on another guitar. And I had to broaden my palette and go, oh wow, like piano would really work here, or
Mm.
organ would really work here. I would hear different things in the tune and suggest things. Sometimes I'd be playing as a session player or a guest guitarist on my friends' recordings. And so I would make some suggestions. They didn't always take them, but you when you develop an ear for it, you do hear different things.
I think, also as a working musician, sometimes you have to take the gig, to pay the bills.
Yep.
And I had a wonderful John Malta one called The Ballad Drummer. And when he was young in the garage playing, somebody, what should we play next? And he said, well, let's play a ballad. And they just foo-fooed him completely. But he always wanted to put together a ballad CD, where, the drums were more on the softer side, more on the sultry side, or just again elongated in its softness instead of boom, boom, boom on the power. And eventually put a CD together, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Hmm.
And it really, I love driving with it because it really is kind of music that just takes you somewhere. But he had to wait 25 years to do that. And we don't want mum, what the wisdom that he gained along the way of this, that, etc., really knowing what he wanted, and the artists that he gathered to be on the CD with him were people that he's played with through the 25 years, which is wonderful. And that's probably why it sounds so good, because everybody was really in on it. But we don't really want people to have to struggle for 25 years before they find, their voice, so to speak, and be able to put their music out there. So what was it about the industry that you decided, like, no, I've just got to help other musicians, put the business hat on and know how to promote themselves?
Yeah. When I went into network marketing, I felt like I really discovered something for myself that had been missing in my 10-year plus career in music and trying to make things work and
Mm,
playing with so many bands that didn't stick together. And so at some point I had to say, well, I'm going to go and write my own solo material, and I have to continue on with or without the people that were my previous collaborators.
mhm.
And when I started to see, I mean, I was so elated. I was excited out of my mind to discover things like Rich Dad Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki and Cash Flow Quadrant. And at the time, there was a book called Prosumer Power. And this is almost like a whole other rabbit trail that I took in my life. But when I read Prosumer Power, I thought to myself, hold on a second. Like, he's talking about a network marketing business model, but couldn't we apply that to something in the music industry?
Exactly.
And I ended up investing in a company that did that. Long story short, because I was thinking about starting my own, and somehow at a barbecue, I ended up meeting someone who was in the process of getting this company set
I
up.
love that serendipity.
Yeah, which was all really good up to that point. It went off the rails, somewhere around 2013, 2014, and finally took its last breath in 2015. But the DNA of what I discovered at
Mm,
that time is still with me.
yes,
And that's why I dedicated myself to, like, I don't know if this business is going to go, so I really need to start thinking about my own career at this
yes.
juncture. And I started writing a lot and ghostwriting and
Mhm.
taking on freelance and client work. And I also dedicated myself to writing my book because I felt like this is, maybe my book's not going to be a huge seller or anything, but it'll at least mitigate against some of the risk of this business is going to go away and the money invested is going to disappear, which it did,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, the music entrepreneur, the companion guide, is
Mm,
basically sharing, the kind of the do's and don'ts and the struggles, and where to redirect. Because, had a business show on before you today, and it's all about networking. Funny enough,
mm,
so it's obviously Network Week, and it's where various advertising or marketing used to be this and that, it pivots all the time due to new technology or new platforms or new this and that. And it's all very well being on all of these platforms, but if you're not interacting with people, if you're not, not quite kind of selling yourself or introducing yourself to other people, people is what promotes other people.
Yeah.
When people like you, people speak about you. And
Yeah.
when people hear you, they've got to buy you before they buy from you. And it's all very well just like, here's my CD, listen to it. But it's that's fine if you're just selling a CD. But at the same time, if you want to really be booked and be referred and really grow in the business, you really got to do some of that networking. And it's, we've got it all geared for business and we've got it geared for this and that, but who's doing it for music?
Yes. Well, that's 100% right. I was, I mean, I watch a lot of marketing content and listen and read. One thing that I got recently was, the purpose of social media is connections, leads, and sales.
Hmm.
But out of those, connections is the
Yes,
one that
first and
is most,
foremost.
it's the most available thing.
Yes,
Like that is the commodity. Leads and
yes,
sales could be hard,
yeah.
but relationships are commodity. You can say hi to anyone, just about. People often like to dish on Twitter, but I'm like, you do realize like these are high income earners,
Hmm.
so you're missing out on an opportunity to learn from incredible people who've accomplished amazing things.
Everything is an algorithm.
Yeah.
We're an algorithm. So what we seed and what we water is what's going to grow. And what you follow and interact with is also what's going to come back on you. So if you really are wanting to feed a certain channel, then make sure that you are actually interacting with those channels
Yeah.
and that you are supporting others. It's not just a, look at me, look at me, look at me. It is about how can we help each other, because people are sick to death with the egos out there, and everybody knows that we actually all get a lot further if we're there to help each other, and
Mhm.
that's really what social media is meant to be about.
I feel like that's where a lot of opportunities came to me in my life, because when I invested in this company, at the time it was called Toon City, I took on the role of online marketing and blogging for our company. Big part of my activity was actually commenting on a lot of other people's posts in the music
Yes,
business.
yes.
That landed me all kinds of freelance gigs worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars down the line. That's not why I did it.
Hmm.
Because I was like, I was seeing something and I wanted to comment on it
Yes.
and offer some insight into what they were talking about. But it ultimately lead to that very thing. So
Sometimes it's just seeding, and the
yeah.
seed is planted, and your continual comment and support eventually will grow. If the people that is what's in it for me. They're short-term people, short buyers, as I call them. I'm looking for the long-term investors, so to speak, whether they're investing time, whether they're investing support, investing cheerleading, or investing money. It's the people where we take the time, which is the biggest commodity that we have, right? Is giving of our time and out there to interact with other people and engage people in conversation. And where it will go from there, that's where the opportunities and the possibilities are. But if you're not interactive, then how are people going to know you if you're not commenting, if you're not? I mean, I've interviewed an awful lot of musicians for seeing posting a blog, or Upworthy is a very good one for that as well, and just like their story, like their music, come on and share. They can say no or they can say yes. But if I don't ask, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know. So I think interaction is really important. And a lot of people, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the social media. And it's like, but that is your marketing. That
Hmm.
is your market. That's how people get to know you, right? And you've got to put aside a certain amount of time a day to do it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, how are they going to know you?
Yeah. It's true, and we don't think about it anymore. But when I was first getting started in this, it was absolutely that. I'd read a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Amazing book for anyone to read. I mean, he says you're basically always on a gradual upward exponential curve or a gradual downward exponential curve in any area of life.
Hmm.
And the gradual upward exponential curve is based on consistency and showing up and
Yes.
doing things every day to make it happen. And so Yeah, exactly what you said. Leaving comments on blogs,
Mm.
interacting on social media, leaving a rating or review in iTunes or Apple Music now for your favorite
Yes.
podcast hosts, leaving Amazon reviews for your favorite books.
Hmm.
People tend to overlook this. And I said, that's like an incredible way to build 365 new connections every year. And they
Exactly.
won't all lead there, but
No, everything is a numbers game. It's all
yeah,
percentage. But if you're not planting the 100 seeds, then you can't expect anything to grow.
yeah,
So you've got to be willing to plant. We met through a networking platform.
that's right.
And that again, when you're in a networking platform, depending what it is, sometimes you have the opportunity to introduce yourself. Sometimes on some of the platforms I've been on, it's just listening to the speakers. But in the chat, they encourage you to interact to the speaker. I like what you're saying, or this or that, or reach out to somebody that you've seen and go, oh, I'm interested to connect more. But be proactive, be
Yes.
proactive. And I think I don't know where or why or what. I must have missed that memo. Whereas sitting back and letting everybody else do the work for you is going to work because it's never worked for me. So, however much AI we get out there, then it can do so much. I'll give you a story of a woman that was following another woman and having conversations with her on social media, and finally she got to meet her. And the person she got to meet didn't know a thing about her because she'd been talking to her social media assistant all that time under the other person's name.
Hmm.
Right. And for me, that
Right.
is such a put off. Yeah, right. I know some people are very, very busy and they've got other people posting and things for them. But that to me is like fraud. It's a misrepresentation of who you are, having this person interact as your voice.
Right.
Right now, if you're advertising, they're doing that type of thing, but not when it comes to that interaction. And she literally felt betrayed
Yeah.
because she thought she was talking to this other person. So whether you like it or not, whether you just want to play music all day long and mañana, mañana, forget about the world. If you want those gigs, if you want to be seen and heard, you have got to put the effort in.
Yeah. Absolutely. It took me time to adapt to the whole Zoom networking thing myself. I'd been to three prior to the one where we connected. So that was
Hmm.
my fourth. And I was convinced this thing doesn't work. I think I even wrote a blog post about it, like Zoom networking. This is just, I don't know. People are just posting a bunch of stuff in chat, and it seems like that's all they care about. But I showed up differently,
Yes.
and I decided to talk about what I do passionately.
Hmm.
And I decided to compliment people and acknowledge people and be present to them. And that made a difference.
Being present.
Yeah.
Everybody can be a back burner and just observe from over there, but that's not going to get you seen.
No.
You've got to be present, you've got to be interactive, and you must be authentic.
Yeah.
We've got very savvy in seeing frauds.
Yeah.
We want people that are genuine. And, people say to me, who do I interview? First and foremost, they've got to come from the heart. They've got to
Yeah.
be passionate about what they do. And what they do, is it going to be inspiring or aiding somebody else in someone else's life? Is it of service? But
Yeah.
it's got to come from the heart. And if it's coming from the ego, I'm not interested. If it's coming from the heart, then I know it's genuine.
Yeah. It's hard because
Mm.
people are compensating for something that they didn't get,
Yeah.
usually as children, right?
Yes. Ooh,
And it's
I've got
not
a
a
whole web series on that.
not a statement of judgment at all, because I know, I mean, I had my father die in 13, and prior to that I
It's
survived an
11. Hmm.
earthquake in Japan, and
Ah,
there were many life events
yes.
that I could have just called it quits and call it a day, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it
not what
really,
life is about.
no, it's not.
I mean, my dad died when I was 11. I
Wow.
was given asthma and eczema when I was 2. So it's something that plagued me all my life and a few other things along the way. Yeah, we get hard knocks. We get
Yeah.
put down. But the whole challenge of life is, how are you going to get back up? How are you going to get back up, and who are you going to be when you get back up? Because
Yeah.
everything that knocks us down, yes, it makes us stronger. And Trevor Noah, who I'm a big fan of, said this, is that we don't have to enjoy the experience, but what we do is celebrate the person that we've become because of the experience.
Yeah. I would
But
even say
yeah,
the current leadership program that I'm doing, it's 2 years. It's not about enjoying the experience at all. It's 12 to 15 hours a week of your life and showing up and hosting training and development opportunities and going to classrooms and having weekly meetings and all that kind of stuff. It's not all about enjoyment. That's for sure. It really
But it
is.
can
So,
be. That
but it
comes
can
the
be. Yeah,
attitude. It's like, yeah, this is I have aspects of my business. There's this, I wear all the hats. So I do all the production and everything that goes out there. And some hats are very wobbly on my head. They're not that great and they're a challenge to do. But I do them because I know they have to be done. For me to get to the part of what I want to do, I'm going to have to do some things that aren't my favorite. But that's life, right? You want to get out there and play your guitar in front of an audience. There's things that you have to do in order to get there.
yep. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I never very much enjoyed thinking about target audiences. But that's like step number one in your whole, like, A, decide a niche. B, who's your audience? I mean, pretty much every business guide I've ever read starts that way.
Yeah.
And I got tired of
Yeah.
hearing it, but it's like, I got to
It's
do it.
it is. I mean, it's again, people say to me, it's from heart. I have 18 different genres. They're all different according to kind of the show. I'm not going to put the music show under mental health, although it could go there because I
True.
believe music is massive mental health awareness. It just is
Yeah.
such a healer. Absolutely. It's saved me so many times. But
Yeah.
it's not really where it belongs. So I created these other genres to break it up. But the core of everybody is the heart. Is it of service to someone? Will it inspire?
Yeah.
Right? And that is if you know what your core is, if you know what your why is, why do you want to play in front of an audience? Do you like the accolades? The one hit wonder and know it's all really wonderful? Or is it that you've got to share your music because it's a part of you?
Yeah. Which reminds me of another critical moment that got me into music. It was when I was 15, so prior to starting to play guitar. Interestingly enough, also at summer camp though, and there was
Summer camp
a
did you good.
yeah, I guess it did. It was a talent show, and I think myself and my friend Nick were the last up, and we decided to perform a rap, and it was a really cheesy one, Weird Al's Twister.
I love Weird Al. He's so
Yeah, Weird
creative.
Al's awesome.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time ever performing in front of an audience of, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 kids were there. And I just couldn't believe how thrilling that was.
Mm.
And that experience turned me on to live performance big time.
And for some people, it scares the bejeebies out of them.
Yeah.
Right? Just getting up, I want to play in my room, I want to play in the studio, but don't put me in front of people, right? Because, there is the inner child or the fear of the some obstacle. And if you've got that, then you've got to work through it. My mum was a stage actress and she was always nervous before she went on. And she said, these nerves are good.
Mhm.
It tunes you in. But the moment you're on that stage, and I'm like this with podcasting, whatever's going on before I hit hello. you know,
Yeah.
when you're in the hello, that is you're there, you're engaged, you're at it. But um, and I when it comes to guest speaking, I like more intimate and question and answer period than big huge arenas. I'm not an arena person, but when you see, like America's Got Talent, these people that recently had that young boy who heavenly sang,
Mhm.
and you've got people that are in their 40s always wanted to sing but life got in the way. And there they are suddenly singing, and their voices just transcending, and the crowd is going wild, and it's the shock on their face. And then this is for me. Somebody really likes my singing, and it's just so wonderful to see that
Yeah.
realization. The other thing, it is never too late. Never
Right.
too late.
Yeah. To your point about live performance, I feel like this is how musicians earn their stripes. And I'm not going to
Mm,
say that a musician's not a real musician unless they
yeah.
perform one, but they should at least perform once
Yes.
so they know how it feels and what it's like and whether or not it's something they want to do. I know there's people out there, some bands I really respect. They have like crushing stage fright to the point
Mm,
where it's just impossible. And I get it. I really do because I've experienced anxiety as well.
mm.
but at least get up there once so you know.
And you've got, I had a wonderful George Albright, a saxophonist, which I call the saxophonist because there's something about the sax, right?
Yeah.
And he worked 6 years on American Idol. And, it's like he said that it gave me a good steady income so I could really go and enjoy, going and playing where I want to play because
Mm.
I know I've got the steady income. And I think, again, that is, as you say, like paying the dues, but it's also the realization if I want to play, sometimes it's not always on the stage or where I want to be, but it is the security that allows me maybe to also make my own music or do something else. But we have to be a little humble sometimes and go, I got to take this gig because Michael Caine said it in his biography. Like he did Dress to Kill, which was an absolutely dreadful movie about him being
Hmm.
transgender, murderous doctor. And he said it purely was to pay the mortgage. Right. So, you look at all the work he's done, and yet he had to take these shows in order to make ends meet. So sometimes it doesn't matter who or what we are, sometimes we've got to pay a bill. And that means if you've got a gig, it's not your ultimate, but it's paying the bill. That's okay. Because of course you never know what you're going to learn and meet or do come from that either.
We don't like to think about Alice Cooper working McDonald's or Louis Armstrong working his butt off his whole life to get anywhere in his
Yeah,
career. And the whole time he was talented. It's not like he
yeah,
suddenly became better at 50 or 60 or
you're
something
right.
like that.
Exactly. The overnight sensation that took 10 years to get there, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the Beatles too. And
Yes.
people forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all of those things that they did, the struggles and everything they did before that, just honed in more.
Yeah.
That by the time they did make that hit, they'd really got in sync and got it together, and it was ready for them to do so. But to try and hit it straight out of the ballpark, there's some fine tuning, so to speak, that needs to be done before you actually get to that level. Otherwise, you kind of going from zero to fame. Some people can handle it, some people can't.
Yeah. It's a big thing I realized as a coach. I
Mhm.
couldn't necessarily take people from A to Z as much as I wanted to
Mhm.
because I could see where they needed to go and what they needed to do to get there. But a good coach is always asking questions and helping them see things that they can't currently see right now about what it is they're doing, where they're going.
Yeah.
So if it's not their own idea, they're not going to do it. And that's the challenge of
Mm.
sometimes we're young and stubborn and don't want to do things a certain way. And
Yes, I want to be true and authentic. Yes, you can still be authentic.
mhm,
And because if you're authentic, you're always bringing the essence of you to everything that you do. But it does mean that sometimes, you've got to fine tune it in a different arena to the one you want.
yeah, it might even just be micro adjustments. A lot of things
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
like maybe move on stage a little versus just standing there.
Yeah, I mean, we get that. This is why I like watching these talent shows and things like The Voice and American Idol. They're kind of different in their approach to it, but they'll say you've got the singer that is being trained and they're perfectly pitched, but there's something missing. And then you have the other person coming out
Mm.
that may get pitchy or this or that, but they've won everybody over because of their personality or just the emotion that is there. And then they've got saying, well, you've got to dance a little bit and they kind of try. And it's like, stop. You know, it's going to detract from the singing. So, you've got to know your strengths. You've got to know your weaknesses. And then if you're covering up your weaknesses, make sure your strengths are stronger.
I'm gonna butcher her name, I'm sure, but Christina Aguilera,
Hmm.
I, she has the master class, right? So one thing that you get watching this is that when she is singing, not thinking about pitch.
Yeah.
Of course, she's transcended that point as a singer, to be fair,
Uh-huh.
but she's thinking about the emotion of the song
Yeah.
and how to make that come across using her voice in a
Yeah.
variety of ways. That's just a whole other level of performance that many of us will like. I can sing, but I don't know if I'm a singer, just like we talked about earlier.
Sanger, a sanger. Yeah.
Sanger, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Kelly Clarkson, I mean, she sang that one, and both of them actually, but one song about, yeah, both of them about their fathers, leaving them and like, oh, I mean, you lost your dad, I lost my dad. I'd love to have had the opportunity to have known him more, but here are fathers that chose to leave, which is something, we don't understand. But it's we see people put their pain into a song, and it speaks through everybody's pain, and it tells them you're not alone.
Yeah.
We've all gone through this, and it's like, I'm going to be stronger because of it, however painful it is right now. Um, or I'm not going to be the victim anymore. Or I've triumphed over the abuse. All of these songs become somebody's anthem along the line and helps them get through something because somebody's singing about them. And that's the reason why they, do so well, because of that connection.
No one's ever asked me, why don't you write happier songs? Although none of my songs are about anything happy for the most part. So people find that uplifting quality. And like you say, something they can relate to in the
Yeah.
music.
Why do you not sing happy songs? Is this a choice that this is what comes to you, or is happy to quiche for you?
They're hard to write.
Mm,
Not always inspired when I'm super happy.
right? That's interesting.
Yeah. But things happen in life, and then those can stir up emotions and feelings to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
I'm
not like I never would. It's more
mhm.
so,
But in your sad songs, is there always a hopeful outcome?
hmm, I guess it's always open to interpretation.
Mm,
Generally, it's not like closed door lyrics.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a blogger, and I do my own show every week. I always address the problem, but I like to find a solution or a choice of attitude, because otherwise I'm just giving the problem power.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. And so it's like, I may not like it, but what can I do about it? Because that's where my choice of empowerment is. So
Mhm.
I have to do that. Otherwise, I can't leave it on that negative note, because it gets me down. I'm that eternal optimist that there is hope.
Yeah. I would say I'm a very enthusiastic and optimist as well.
Mhm.
And life is not about running from those emotions or pain. We know
Right.
where that lands people in
Yes.
in rehab generally, and sometimes
Yes.
worse.
And this is something that we've seen in the last few years. Mental health has been spoken about so much amongst, artisans and the ownership, where in the past that stigma would have been, oh, and they wouldn't want to do anything. And now it's like, you too?
Yeah.
And you're bipolar, or you've had mental anguish, or you've had this, or you've had that. And it's that relatability that no matter how big the star is, these are the demons that they're dealing with. And that's what makes them, the human side of them. Don't put them so far up on the pedestal that you don't look at them in their reality. And so many of them have openly come out and said, this is my struggle. And no music for a while because I'm in my struggle. All the struggle is going to be shared from my music. And I think that's something we need so much from people, where in the past it wasn't allowed to be. Now it is. We want their honesty. We want to know. And not all of them have to have struggles, of course. I mean, look at Taylor Swift. Every time,
Mhm.
her relationships have been completely played out in all the songs, but they're generally always upbeat, kind of
True.
retaliatory type songs. But I think that sense of connection, that I'm not alone, or somebody else is going through it. I can empathize with you. What can we do about it? I think is what we need as a human race to know. For far too long, performers were separated. The to who they really were, they were hidden from public. The image of what the record labels wanted them to be, and it destroyed them.
Yeah.
It completely destroyed them. And then we never get the sense of who they really are. It's not even representative in their music anymore.
Yeah. Except for maybe people like Prince, who I
Mm,
think it was very intentional that he denied most people interviews and didn't talk much publicly about his beliefs and how how he felt about things or who he was. But that was sort of the mysterious persona, as it were. And I think it was chosen in his
mm,
case. He wanted to be that. And at the same time, like, that era is gone. There can't be a Prince today
yeah.
because you need publicity.
I know it's the dilemma, isn't it? Um, when we look back on the decades and we look at, would that person have got to fame, in today's era with that
Right.
music? I had, there's that Geico one, whoop, da 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 da, whoop, da 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 da, that song, and
Hmm.
Geico picked it up. Well, I had the guy on that was the original one hit wonder of that, and he said, I'm very proud of it. It opened so many doors for me in so many other areas of where I'm going, just that one record. I didn't need to have any more. For him, it was that pivot and redirection. But, for other people, of course, I've got another song in me. It's got to come out. It's got to come out. Because if it isn't and it's locked inside of me, it could essentially will destroy because you're holding your voice back.
That's just the reality of a creator.
Hmm.
We don't know which thing is going to stick or which thing
No.
is going to be the hit, and we have to show up. And sometimes we don't want to. It's like 1,000 podcasts later,
Yeah.
or 2,000 blog posts later, or 80 songs later. Like we finally find our stride, or we
Yeah.
find something that connects with people. But for most people, that is the reality of being a creator, creative in any capacity.
What you created yesterday and what you're going to create tomorrow, or further down the road, it really cannot be dictated because it's very much dictated by where you're at that
Yeah.
time. You know, um, I'm a creative visionary where I can see possibilities for people. I can just see it all
Mm.
laid out like a movie. Um, I'm not the one to show them how to walk it or what
Right.
tools they need. However, I've got them here under self-discovery wisdom, but I can just see those possibilities in with certain people. And but sometimes seeing, for myself in the past, when I saw the vision, I wanted to get up and do it straight away.
Hmm.
And then what I've had to learn as I've got older is this big P word of patience. It's not the right time. You weren't given it to act on it straight away. You were given it for it to really sit and manifest, ready for when the time is right to know what to do with it. And I think that very often could be, a song. You have artists that, oh, I wrote that song 10 years ago. It wasn't ready to be released, right? Or I wasn't ready to go down this road, or the circumstances weren't ready to do that. And I think you really must be in tuned with yourself and where your readiness is and preparedness is for that next overnight sensational break.
This is why I've often felt that SMART goals aren't that smart.
Mm,
So, because it's got that T in it, time bound, timely. We're not that smart.
mm.
Universe has a much better idea of when
Yes,
the timing for everything is. And
yes.
if so we can just let go of that part, we can
Mm.
actually enjoy the journey way more and focus on the what and the why
The
of
allow,
what we're doing. Yeah,
the
allow,
allow.
absolutely.
Yeah. You were given the creativity for a reason. Don't go into the human ego of dictating what it should be. Sit back with it and allow it to take you where it needs to go.
Yeah,
But on the
exactly.
other hand, you've got to put the business hat on and then go down that road, which I know can feel very fake to certain people. But what they've got to realize is you're bringing your why you love the music. You're bringing of why you are the music to every networking event that you're doing, and you're
Yeah,
sharing the passion. And when people pick up on the passion, they want to know more. They
that's
want
right.
to know you more. Where can I get your music? How can I book you? I know somebody, da 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 da. But if you're not willing to bring out your essence and your passion, then how is anybody going to know?
Well, it's huge. Don't get stuck on the word business or
Yes.
any other word that gets you stuck, because that's not really what it's about. People get stuck on networking too, and then I'll get responses saying, "Yeah, but I'm an introvert, so I'm excluded," right? And I said, "There's no exclusion,
No,
and
no,
there's no excuse."
no.
Remember, Magic of Thinking Big. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
read this book before you read anything else. Why? Because it talks about the excusitis disease. That's the number one success disease is excusitis. We don't get excuses.
Right.
Not,
Right. We can have choices because I have this thing where if I feel something pushes me back, then I know it's the wrong choice for me. If it
yeah,
if it doesn't push me back, but I'm not quite sure what to do with it, I will explore. It may still be not B, but I will explore. But if I get the pushback, and it's not the fear pushback, it's the no, not for you pushback, but you got to know yourself to know what the difference is, right? And, as you said, I have a business, Shara, building your business. It's entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small companies, etc. But people have got to understand you are your business.
Yes.
Life is your business,
Yes.
right? Everything is to do with business. We're not talking e-commerce here, we're talking business, right? E-commerce is something that comes as a byproduct of your business,
Yeah.
but the business of life. So just look at it differently. Don't get so intimidated. Networking, connecting, if you don't like the word networking,
That's right.
right? If, don't get stuck on a word. Put another word in that you feel more comfortable with. But
Yeah.
okay, don't use it as an excuse.
And you made a really good point about all of us having an internal compass. And I really
Mm,
do believe that. Like sometimes things
100%.
aren't right and you do need to walk away.
Yes.
But don't mistake fear for the
Yes.
reason to walk away. Fear is sometimes a good thing. It's like your body getting an injection, getting a little adrenaline shot to go and do the thing that's hard to do. Make the
Yes.
call you need to make.
That is a kind of a different form of nerve thing, when you get that fear up here in the top part of yourself, that is a fear to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But when it's kind of that little anxiety butterfly type fear, more in the stomach, that is a fear to break through.
Yeah. Well said.
Is understanding what your fear is and where it's coming from. And of course, an awful lot of people, whether they're artisans or not, is the fear of ridicule, the judgment,
Mhm.
making a fool out of themselves, people thinking less of them. And that comes from our own personal insecurity. And very often that can be a life journey of healing our inner child, building up our confidence, and becoming at home with oneself. When you're at home with oneself, I am what I am, as Popeye says, and I'm comfortable with who I am. And if you're not, that's okay.
Hmm.
It's not going to affect me. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's okay. I don't expect to be everybody's cup of tea, besides I like black coffee.
Yeah.
So don't compare and don't compete. I think there are two C's that are very deadly. If you're comparing yourself to someone, but I'm not like them, I need to be like them, then you're losing yourself. If you're competing with people, I've got to be better than them, I've got to beat them, then you're doing it for the wrong reason, right?
Yeah.
So the more at home and the more work you're willing to do on yourself and your why, what drives you, what are you really trying to accomplish, the more comfortable you are with yourself and the more you'll recognize what fear is approaching you.
It's very important for artists to remember because not even the Beatles or Michael Jackson uh, had 6 billion fans,
Right.
right? They didn't, and it's hard to imagine that because they are some of the best-selling artists of all time,
Exactly.
and yet we're still talking millions
Yeah.
sold, not billions.
Yeah.
So you don't need to appeal to planet Earth to have a great career, especially an independent career.
Yes, exactly. The thing is, you talked about it at the beginning, what is your niche? What is your genre? Who are you playing for?
Mhm.
If you are a broad spectrum, that's great. But maybe one album at a time with a certain niche to build up an audience, and then another album in a different way. Don't try and put it all in one package because you can confuse people.
It's 100% true. What you want to do is figure out your, let's say, internal brand. So, like,
Mm,
what's your purpose, mission? Why do you exist? Why do you do what you do? Once you have that, you can wrap that in different sub
yeah.
brands
Yes.
as an expression of who you are. And so each album could be different,
Hmm.
and that's okay. But yeah, when is it okay to genre swap or try a different style of your music? Usually on a per album basis, not on like a per song basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then people do get kind of confused as to who you are. I mean, you had Taylor Swift go from country to pop and the
Yep.
ridicule that she got from that. And it's like, get over yourself, folks. She's expanding, she's growing, she's trying something different. It's not a betrayal.
Well,
It is just
it's
she has another voice in her that wants to come out and explore that. And I think, this idiotic thing that we have over people that are famous that no, 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 you fit this box for me, and don't you dare try and get out of your box. That issue is on you. It's not on the artist. The artist is following their creativity and expanding on it and seeing where it wants to go. You could go with them or you could stay put, but keep your criticism to yourself.
It Plus it was so expected. And this is the
Uh-huh.
part that I can't help but laugh at, right? Brittany goes bad. You could see it from the very beginning. Christina goes bad. Uh, again, Jessica goes bad. Look, it's just following the same pattern.
I know.
Yeah,
They
so
put
it's
out a
nothing to do.
sexy song,
Yeah,
and it's like, I remember when Christina put out a sexy song after her Sweet Innocent one, which she says that she didn't want to go down that road, but,
right.
was, the label, you're going down that road. And then she came out with one where it was kind of, dirty. Then she did, um, forgotten the movie with Lady Marmalade,
Ah,
that
yes.
song, with Cher, you know,
Burlesque.
burlesque, yes.
Uh-huh.
And then she did that, which was fantastic in that, right?
Yeah,
And she just wanted to be seen in a different way. And it's, what is it about us that, no, you've got to be one, one size fits all. There is no one size fits all in any shape, size, or anything in world. Nothing.
yeah,
Get that out of your head and understand that it's really about frequency. It's about
yeah.
vibe and getting into a groove, getting into a vibe, but that is always perpetually moving up and down. We don't want the highs, we don't want the lows, we want things that are in rhythm. And when you're in rhythm with yourself, the rhythm of your life will constantly expand and grow upwardly, but in a rhythmic mode.
Hmm. Mainstream music, mainstream media is always engineered. That's what I've
Yeah.
discovered on my journey. And it's meant to evoke emotion, it's meant to evoke suspicion, all kinds of things in us that make us wonder or think or and it's okay. Like it's an entertainment, right? But just
Hmm.
remember, like it's engineered. It's actually not real. Reality TV is not real. Those are hired actors playing
Yes.
parts.
Yes. And again, we may entertain and connect with the role they're playing or
Yeah.
the situation they're playing, even if it's like the Game of Thrones or the Walking Dead, how can you relate to that? Well, the question is, what would we do if we were in that situation?
Hmm.
Could we lose ourselves? Could we become somebody different? Do we have to be somebody different in order to survive? Where is the compass on that? And I think it's always that, I think always question yourself,
Yeah.
could I, would I, should I? And I think that is a good way to know when you can expand and when no, not that road. Even though
Hmm.
it might be intriguing, not that road. Or sometimes, yeah, that road is okay. It's not going to cost me myself
Hmm.
because yourself is a too high a price to pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But be like the willow tree, be able to blow your branches in the wind without cracking, right? But you've got to be flexible if you want to be in this industry, because if you're not, you won't make it.
Yeah. I think that's why sometimes it can be really tough for people who've been at it for a while to
Yeah.
try something different and try something new. And that's not true of every 40 or 50-year-old, but there are some that have a tough time thinking about, well, should I move from the guitar to the piano or should I incorporate dance moves or whatever it might be? And it's like, my job is always just to gently move them in the direction of what they want to create, what they would be happy with, what they set their sights on and set their goals towards. But yeah, never at the expense of self.
No. And that goes, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. The only thing, what I always say, it's a guilty pleasure interviewing artists or musicians, is because you've already found your heart and soul in the music
Hmm.
and what you're doing. And all it really is a question of how do I maintain this in a way that can support me on this earthly plane so I can still play my cosmic music and have it reach the audience. And you're wanting the audience to feel like you feel when you're playing,
Yeah.
right? That is that you are sharing the expression of you and you want them to connect with that, to feel what you're feeling and as transcend or ascend even further from that. Um, but at the same time, of course, it is how you're going to pay for your bills and how are you going to be ready to know the frauds in the industry and those that are real in the industry. Are you going to be an independent? Are you ready for a record label? Are you ready to
Yeah.
ask the right questions for a record label? Are you ready to know how to read the document so you don't sign on the bottom line and sign all your music away, right?
Yeah.
Always make sure that you own your own music. They can rent it from you, lease it from you, but don't give it away because, look what happened to Taylor Swift, right? All her music was taken away. So she went and redid all her own music and created a new album. Not everybody's got the money to do that. So there's so many things that the do's and don'ts in protection. And it may feel, as you say, for some people pulling teeth and it's difficult to do. But what you're doing is armoring them with the right questions, the right knowledge.
Yeah.
So then when they see those opportunities, or when they have to pursue those opportunities or how to present themselves in certain situations, they're ready. They're ready.
Yes.
They know their music, they know why they want to do it. But what you're doing is just setting up the structure and the way that they do it, that they are protecting themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, those are the big crossroads moments.
Mm.
The day to day is more so like, let's figure out how to improve a live performance. Let's figure out how to better promote this event for more people come out and see your show. But then those big moments do come up. Do I sign
Yes.
this contract? Does it make sense for me to do right now? And when you don't have any other offers, that
Yeah.
360 deal sometimes looks really good. And
Yes.
like, I don't know if you want to sign that. And it's still not up to me. It's still up to the artist at the end of the day. But
Mm.
equipping them with everything they could possibly want to or need to know in that situation is huge.
Reading between the lines,
Yeah.
knowing how to protect yourself. And the others will play hardboil.
Mhm.
They will. They're there to get you as cheap as possible and to get out of you as much as possible. So
Yeah.
always look at who is wanting you to sign. What is the integrity? What do some of the other artists say about them? Because it all may be very well. I mean, again, over and over, you see on the talent shows, I had a record deal. I was cutting a record and they suddenly just dropped me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how often do we hear that? The label just froze them away, right? So how are you protecting yourself from that kind of choice? And you really need to know how to assess who is offering you the contract, how to read the contract. Is this contract even right for me at this time? And if this person's interested, don't think it's the only person that's going to be interested. If this person is interested, keep pushing forward because maybe somebody better suited for you.
That's the side of things we often don't hear about is
Exactly.
artists that are signed, for example, and management changes. So suddenly
Mm,
the label has no idea what to do with that artist anymore. Or artists that were signed to the label, but because they weren't a priority, there were after a year or two, they went, why do we still have them on our roster?
mhm.
We're just going to cut them off and let them go. And then some of these artists even get blackballed by their labels. I mean, to be fair, sure, sometimes artist is in the wrong with what happened in those situations, but so often, yeah, we think
Mm,
here's the big windfall, that here's the moment I've been waiting for, and they're going to give me a $30,000 advance. Yeah, but that advance, look at the terms. You're supposed to
yes.
pay it back with 10% interest,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? Like
Yes.
you have to look very carefully at these clauses to know what's going on. So yeah, that's the sort of the, I don't know, not unsung heroes, but there's so many artists that have gone through those types of situations too, where oh, it looked like the big break in their career, but unfortunately, even if they were signed, it didn't go anywhere.
But it also goes in choosing a manager.
Yeah, big
Who's
time.
your agent? Who's the one pitching you? Who are they pitching to? How are they representing you? Right? It's great to have an agent that's on your side that's going to get you gigs, this, that, etc. But how are they presenting you? And is it really in your light? What are they in it for? I've got another book coming out this year called the Forgotten Children series, where some of the people I've interviewed are going to be collaborators of the book, and it's about our forgotten children, how we can better serve them. But I've been looking for a publisher, and many of them have pitched. Da 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 da. I found one that's in it for the same reason. The story needs to be told, right? This is what I call the Robin Hood one. We will raise money to put this one out because the money goes back into each one of their organizations. The next book will be on coaches who will pay to be in the book. And that's the thing. If you've got somebody that's in it because they believe in you, in it because they believe in your music, in it because they believe that there is a future for you and they really want to work for you, then you know you've got the right person that you've teamed up with. How do you recognize them? What kind of questions do you ask? And you need to ask the other people they're representing. How is it to work with this person? So you've got to do your due diligence.
I listened to music business radio a lot out of Nashville in my early days. And then after a while, I said, this is really interesting. I think I noticed a commonality. Most of these successful artists have some combination of a manager, agent, or publicist, or
Mm-hmm.
all, or some. You, and this is something like it would just not strike most artists as being evident or obvious
Right.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's like, who is in your corner?
Yeah.
Do they care about what they're selling? And if they're an agent, chances are they do a lot. Like if they're getting you any kind of gigs, they care. And can those people get you to where you want to go?
Yeah. There has to be a synergy between, that they are representing you in your light. So therefore they really need to believe in you, vice versa. Like the two energies have to really merge,
Yeah.
in it for the right reason. You know, everybody needs money and everybody wants money because money gives us security. Um, if you're in it for fame and money, you're in it for the wrong reason. But if it's like, as obviously, the more money I make, the more I can seed opportunities for other people. That's a great way of thinking. But it's if the money is driving the boat, that boat will sink because you're going to make the wrong decisions. If you're driving for the fame and the fortune and the chicks, you're going to be somebody who will peter out. But if you are the musician, the performer that has to do it because it is who you are, it's in your blood, you've got to do it, then you need somebody around you. You need many people around you that believe in you and that want to help propel you forward safely.
Money moves for its own reasons. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that you can either position yourself in its pathway in a fortuitous or in an advantageous manner, or yeah, you can put yourself out of alignment with that vibration completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually doing things, especially in artistic endeavors or creative endeavors or music, for the sole sake of money, puts you completely out of alignment with the reasons money moves. It's sort of like desperation.
Yeah.
Desperation definitely moves you out of alignment completely. So I want to make more music because I'm desperate to earn some cash on the side. Isn't quite.
Sending out the wrong vibe, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I'm saying, like, you may go and take a gig, or do some other type of music somewhere that pays those bills, that allows you then to kind of be more creative where you're not getting the money, but it allows you to grow. You've got to be willing to take those jobs. But just make sure that it just still allows you to pursue, the dream that you really have got. I'm so happy to see that you've taken this route because there are so many performers that didn't know how to put on the business hat or have had the misinformation or just think it's just about giving their music away and eventually they'll get their break. The very few and far between that ever get like that. There was a young girl, I think last season, on America's Got Talent, where Harry Mandel saw her outside singing, hanging, and brought her on stage, and she got quite far and gave her enormous exposure, right? Which she wasn't expecting. So you've also got to be prepared for the unexpected.
Yeah. One of my mentors really had me focus on the pragmatism of it all. And I didn't always enjoy it
Mm,
because I wanted to take bigger risks.
yeah,
And he's always the one that helps me look at, oh, you're gonna rent a hotel in Penticton for $1,000 a month. That sounds great. You should do that. That's a better option than living in Vancouver for $2,000 a month right now.
exactly.
Stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I'm
Exactly.
thinking, okay, fine. Like it's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term goal, really. And
Yeah,
it's really not a sacrifice when I think about when I'm present to life, when I'm present
yeah,
to what's right around me. Penticton is a beautiful place.
it
There's
is.
lakes on either end of the city. If I want to go to the beach, it's 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away, whichever way I want to go.
And
So
again, it's what you make out of it.
it really is.
Right. And again, with the internet, those doors are never closed if you're willing, to get on using this wonderful tool called the internet that's brought our world closer together. And there was one artist during COVID, all of her gigs obviously got shut down. And
Mm,
so she every single Friday she did a live gig on YouTube
yes.
for to stay current, to stay in with people. Some people took the opportunity to work with other artists and they all worked via Zoom and then put it together, to create an album. And it's like there is no box. There are limitations, but how do you work your way around those limitations? It doesn't mean it's the end of. It just means you have to open up a different thought pattern as to how you can make something happen.
While I was living in Calgary, we set up many community projects, usually revolving around music in some capacity. One of the first ones was called The Question. So it was actually a TEDx style exploration of
Hmm.
truth, but we'd always have a poet or musician come in and share their exploration of truth. And then we did the Listening Room YYC, which was more like, let's do a house concert type thing in a venue where people stop and actually listen to the music, not chat with each other while that's going on. When that was a fun experiment too. And then we came up with the Indie YYC and we launched kind of a series of really cool events, poetry and experimental music and singer songwriter and author mixed together kind of events. It was pre-COVID, so unfortunately
Yeah.
we had to shut the events down probably within a year of starting, but we continued on Facebook, and we created the series The Indie YYC Inspires
Hmm.
because of the way things were going around, and it was a lot of doom and gloom
Yeah.
in the media and everywhere else. And so I got to do stuff like that where I collaborated with people from Calgary when I was in Abbotsford, and we put together collaboration over Zoom and shared it
Yeah.
as a source of encouragement.
Exactly. It's just a redirect. I'm constantly, I've got every week I put out a blurb and it's like, and this may happen, that may happen, and you can't do things the way you wanted to do them. It's just adapt, adopt, redirect, it's
Mhm.
it- don't give up. It's just,
Yeah.
either saying wrong time, wrong place, or do it a different way. That's all. So the more in tune you are within yourself, the more you're able to read what that obstacle is there for, right? And
Yeah.
how to step into your creativity in a different realm. So it's just be tuned in. The more knowledge you have about options, networking and creating and how to do your business and all of that, the more you know about that, the more this tool's perfect for this moment. But if you don't know what that tool is, then you could be flapping in the wind.
Which has really been one of my strengths through the years, and a go-to source for people who are kind of trying to figure out what it is they need to do right now to
Yeah.
adapt. I've always had a huge list of links and bookmarks and stuff stored in my logs and my archives that I keep present to. Things do change. Obviously, we have to update our our
Yes.
bookmarks from time to time.
Yes.
But if there was ever someone who was pretty on top of this stuff, it was me.
Which network did we meet through again, love? Because I'm on a few of them.
Video socials.
Right.
Yeah.
One that I'm inviting you to, and anybody else that's listening,
Hmm.
they need to go to my events page, so selfdiscoverywisdom.com events. I put the events that the people are doing or that I'm a part of, and one of them is the step up, stand up, speak out, and it's 8th of the month of every year, right up to March next year, and there's 262 authors going to be part of a book, but every month from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time is a whole load of guest speakers. But one of the things that Deb Drummond is doing, and I invite you to listen to all her shows because we've done a lot of them and about to do another one with her and her artist son who's starting his own clothing line, is they're going to be walking across Ireland next year.
Mm,
I think it's 8 marathons in 9 days. But what they're doing it is to raise awareness for musicians and how we need to stop pirating their music and start paying them what they're due and
mm,
respect the music. So I think you two need to meet because, there are an awful lot of advocates out there. And when we put that creativity and that advocate together, God knows what can happen, right? So that's the joy of it. But whether people are playing the music or not, if they're the lovers of music, they need to support the music,
hmm. That's
which is
terrific.
very important, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is for free. Everything has a dollar sign to it because for them to create that music, make that music, everything else costs them. So why should they not get paid for the pleasure that you're having from the music or
Hmm.
the podcast or anything else, right? That's the way the world works, folks. So if people want to reach out to you, they're a musician or they know a musician, there's a mum listening here. My son wants to be a musician, but he doesn't know the business out of this. How do they reach out to you and what kind of programming are they expected to go through?
Yeah, musicentrepreneur.hq.com houses most of what I've got available for musicians in terms of books and courses and coaching. A really great way for a lot of people to get started is with an initial coaching session because I can give them a lot of strategies and tactics. And if they're happy with it, they just pay the fee and we're done.
Hmm.
If they want to apply that towards hiring me for something else or some of my products, they can do that. And if they're
Hmm.
not happy, I refund them in full. So really, usually the best way to start is right there. Let's have a face-to-face conversation and I can direct you towards the resources that'll help you.
And they can just find that on your site. There's a sign up thing for that on your site.
Yeah, we're developing it, but it should be up very soon.
Okay. And your social medias, love, what are you on?
Yeah. I'm I guess I'm easiest to find on Twitter. I would say David A. Wiebe.
Can you spell
W-I,
that for the people that are listening, love?
yeah, DAVIDAWIEBE.
And you're on YouTube as well,
Yes.
Dawncast.
Dawcast. DAWCAST.
And you're on Medium as
Yeah.
well. And what is your Facebook one, love? We don't have that link.
Oh, I think you can find my main profile, just David Andrew Wiebe.
Okay, and we'll make sure we have that link up there as well. You also have contentmarketingmusician.com,
Mhm.
and you have like an affiliate link there for that as well. So can you tell us what that is about?
Yeah, we created something called the PDF Vault, and we put all of our podcast transcripts and cheat sheets. There's a few exclusive ebooks in there. There's a few blog posts in there from the site. So some of our best resources we've made available for free.
Excellent.
All it is to sign up for it with an email.
Great. So, we want the music. We need the music. Music is essential in our lives. For me, the interesting thing is from doing energy shows was the realization that music resets your frequency within your body. So very often when people are feeling sad or depressed, music is a wonderful way of rebalancing and bringing back your equilibrium. It's a wonderful way to express how we feel when we don't have the words or just to let loose and
Mhm.
enjoy ourselves. It's a language that is not going to go anywhere. And it's a language that, whether we can sing or not, that we need music in our lives. It's very, very, very important. And we're going to close out with one of your pieces of music. There will be three pieces of music that will be on SoundCloud that you can hear, not download. And that will be Don't Wait Too Long, No Escape, and Hope. But we're going to close out with Hope tonight. So tell us a little bit about Hope.
Yeah, this song I wrote in 2016, and the song was not about hope so much as I would love for there to be something more than hope.
Mm. Mm.
Because at that point in my life, I had lost quite a bit. Lost my business, lost my girlfriend, lost my faith in the religion that I had been following up to that point, and it was kind of a wide open track from there. Up until that point, it's like, here's the railroad, just keep going. And now the train came to a stop. There was no railroad. I felt like I was in the middle of the desert.
Mhm.
But if you're encouraged by the song, that's perfect too, because a lot of people actually are.
Anything that comes to a shattering end, believe me, I've had quite a few of them in my 68 years, quite a few of them. It's yes, mourn what could have been, mourn the loss, but then get yourself up, dust yourself off. All it is a huge redirect into another direction,
You're
right?
right.
Don't give up, don't give in, get up and get going.
Absolutely.
So we're going to close out with hope. I thank you so much for being here today, Dave. It's been wonderful meeting you, and thank you for what you're doing for other musicians, because we want their music and we want them to be represented. We want them to be protected. And obviously be paid, and what you're doing for them is giving them that entire structure in order to build their own little music empire. So thank you for taking that route.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And until next time, folks, here's a little hope. Bye for now.
If you take what you're fed and you never question it, if you wait for what you want and never go after it, where would that lead you? You say you believe in some far-off dream, and I once believed in something unseen. So when is that ship coming in? Oh, is all there is and all there ever was, and everything else can fall away for all I can. Soon enough you'll figure out that no one has it figured out. Soon enough you'll see they're not that different from you and me. Soon enough you'll figure out that no one has it figured out. Soon enough you'll see they're not that different from you and me. Oh, is all there is and all there ever was, and everything else can fall away for all I can. Oh, is all there is and all there ever was, and everything else can fall away for all I can. Soon enough you figure out that no one has it figured out. Soon enough you'll see they're not that different from you and me. Show me that it's true. Show me the real you. Show me that there's more than hope. Soon enough you figure out that no one has it figured out. Soon enough you'll see they're not that different from you and me. Show me that it's true. Show me the real you. Show me that there's more than hope.
We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.